Good evening. I'll call to order the Board of Education meeting for Monday, July 28th, 2025. Kristen, could we have a roll call, please?
Bridget?
Here.
Tracy?
Here.
Eric?
Here.
Mark?
Yes, here.
Brian is absent tonight. Ann?
Here.
And Aaron.
Here. I'll verify that we have quorum, and please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And would you please read the school board mission statement?
Working together to ensure high levels of learning for all.
Thank you. Kristen, was public notice given?
Public notice was given to the requesting news media. The agenda was posted in school district buildings and on the district's website.
Are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
No changes.
Given there's no changes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Motion by Tracy, seconded by Mark, to approve the agenda as published. Are there any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes. So tonight's agenda is set. We have no request for public input on tonight's published agenda, and we'll move into our first recognition item, which is donations. And we'll leave that.
So it is with great Hilltopper pride that we acknowledge and share our thanks and gratitude to the following donations. $1,000 from Robert George for the Irving Perch Elementary and Onalaska Middle School for the Multilingual Learners Program. $2,141.31 from Beer by Bikes Brigade for student lunch accounts. $2,000 from Service Master Onalaska for the student lunch accounts. And lastly, $1,399.60 from Office Depot for school supplies for Northern Hills Elementary.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's always, it's like every time we get together, it's always surprising the ways that various organizations and individuals in the community recognize and support what we're doing here in the school district. All of those donations are certainly most appreciated. We'll move into informational and discussion items, starting with building project updates. Jared.
Thank you. There's a lot of work being done on the Wilson Street side of the school, which you maybe have noticed if you've come past. Sidewalks are being put in. It's getting ready for asphalt, and the large retaining wall that will separate the new parking lot down below from up above is also nearly finished, I think in the next day. There's also work being done by the new parking lot entrance on the southwest corner of the building, and then lots and lots happening in the building. The locker rooms are coming together very quickly in terms of the ceilings being put in, lights being put in. The tech ed area is getting closer and closer to completion. The floors were done last week, paint booths in, and then finally, downstairs in the basement, the French and the business area, the drywall is all up. It's being prepped for painting, and hopefully flooring soon thereafter.
Thank you. Jana, middle school.
The main parking lot it's paved and now striped. The comment is it's starting to look like the picture that was rendered to us, so that's fun to always see, and seeing some of the things start to come to completion. The new music classrooms are pretty much ready. The flooring needs to go in there. The Boys and Girls Club spaces and the playground is also pretty much ready to go. The Boys and Girls Club gym, they just put the floor into the gym and are framing out the spaces for the Boys and Girls Club. And then work continues to progress in the art and tech ed classrooms. Those are the spaces that we hope to occupy pretty soon after the school year starts. There's some special things that they have to do to the flooring to cure in order for that to be ready for students to be in. So we have some alternate plans for art and tech ed specifically.
Great. Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Jared or Jana? Okay, we'll move into item 11, which is the 2025-26 handbooks. And we're going to start with the elementary student handbook. Lish, are you presenting that tonight?
I sure will. Yes, thank you. You'll notice as you listen to all of our handbook presentations this evening, there's a handful of things that you'll see across all the handbooks, and those come from every year when we get our updates from Neola to ensure that we're aligned with any policy updates that need to be reflected in our handbook. So the first substantive change is we added a section called academics that just includes a non-discrimination statement for all of our courses as well. Under access to the building, we did a lot of work on our safety plan, as you know, this year. So we clarified how the entrances and how that works with our updates to the safety policy. We added contact information for how to ensure that attendance information is shared with our offices. Under care of property, we changed a phrase to say families may be required to pay rather than will be required to pay, as those we handle on a case-by-case basis. For clothing guidelines for students, we realized that we actually had 2 sections that address this. So we took that one out. All of that information is present in the student dress section. For daily schedule, we added language to ensure that students do not arrive before we have supervision for them in the mornings, and then also clarified methods to contact the office with any changes to their schedule. Under drug prevention, an addition that came from the policy updates is adding a statement of misuse of over-the-counter drugs or medications as well. Under our electronic devices, we added watches to the list of devices and a statement reinforcing that students should not be using watches or cell phones to contact during the school day. Just keeping up with the technology on that one. For emergency drills, we updated that to reflect our new updates to our safety plan. And for field trips, we clarified procedures for permission. Parents give permission in their annual student update in Power School, so we just clarified that so that parents are aware. Under the inclement weather, we clarified that and added the air quality index that typically was something we only used in the summer, but that became something that we needed to be considerate of this spring. Under the meals section, we added that pop, sweetened, and caffeinated drinks are highly discouraged. And also, if you recall, a few years ago, we stopped offering milk break, so we deleted the statement about not offering milk break because it's been a few years since we changed that. And we added a USDA non-discrimination statement there to stay current with policy. Probably one of the bigger changes that we have this year is to the promotion, placement, and retention policy because of Act 20 and the policy that was enacted for 3rd grade promotion. We added the information about that to the elementary handbooks. Under searches of school property, we added a statement about why a staff member might search school property at the elementary level. Under testing and assessment, we just updated the assessments that we're providing. For tobacco, we updated that the legal age is 21 now, not 18. And then under volunteers, just an update to stay current with the times. It used to say that there was a written application to volunteer, but now that's an electronic background check to volunteer. So those are our substantive changes. You'll notice throughout we've changed dates and things like that to maintain that it's current, but otherwise that's our substantive changes for elementary.
And this is on for first reading, right? So is anyone fielding questions from the board specifically in between now and next meeting?
Any of us can take that.
All right, great. Team have any
Mr.
questions? right now?
President, if I could just interject, if someone did have questions about any of the handbooks, if they could run that through me, and then I can get the answers from the principals.
Very good. Thank you. And we have a pre-K student handbook. And
I will
Todd,
take
that's
that.
on for sure.
Thank you. Want to give a shout out and thank you to Kelly McMahon for getting this going. We had not had a pre-K handbook prior to her in her role as our pre-K coordinator. And through collaboration with our pre-K staff and elementary principals, we came up with this handbook for our families. It is really only applicable to our school sites. You know, we have partner sites with our pre-K program, but they have their own guidelines and handbooks that they follow. But these will be linked on our websites when we are completed, hopefully in the process of approving these. So you won't see any highlighting or strike-throughs in this because it's brand new, but we did model it after the elementary handbook. So what you've got in the important highlights, the summary of important highlights, are kind of where it deviates from the elementary because of the uniqueness of pre-K. So in terms of attendance, there's no compulsory attendance for 4K, so but we do have a plan in place to notify families of attendance to help build those positive habits. They start in pre-K even to get our students to school consistently. In terms of busing, our 4K has a hand-to-hand contact with an adult policy, so as we pick up and drop off, we want to make sure there's a handoff with an adult at the student's residence or at a daycare, wherever they are deposited, not at a large group stop as our elementary routes. And then classroom placement procedures, a little different for pre-K because it's based on kind of the time of enrollment, child care center placement. We have different boundaries for our pre-K, and transportation impacts that as well. So different classroom placement procedures. Daily schedules are updated for 4K AM and PM session times. The meals section, 4K does include a meal break, but no breakfast or lunch for our 4K students. And then playground, that section's unique to 4K students and families as they learn our playground rules. They might be a little different than just going to the neighborhood playground. And finally, the toileting and dressing section. This is unique to 4K students as it is a part of our standards to learn self-help behaviors to meet the physical needs of students. So that is included in that section. So that is the highlights of the deviations for pre-K as compared to elementary.
Team, any immediate questions for Todd or the team? I'll assume then that any questions that we have in between tonight and our second reading will go first through Ben and then to the administration. Middle school activities handbook, and this is also first reading for all of these tonight. So, Jana?
Throughout, there'll be updates to websites, links. We updated parents to parents and guardians or families. Update with our new logo and links to the sections, so for ease of use, so you can go from the table of contents to each section. We added a couple clubs, Crochet Club and Dungeons and Dragons. Our biggest substantive change was to the team formation guidelines, outlining how we form teams and how it differs in 7th and 8th grade, but making a consistent approach to team formation for the team sports in comparison to the individual sports. So you'll see football, basketballs, and volleyball and softball look a little bit different than cross country and tennis and track and field and golf. And then in each description of each activity, we updated the way that just highlighting the team formation guideline of that sport or activity. We added the descriptions to Crochet Club and Dungeons and Dragons Club. We added an update to our physical form. The physical is good for every 2 years, and we just highlighted that in the rules of eligibility. And then we highlighted a section for suspension from school. If a student is suspended from school, they'll be ineligible to play in the next competition.
Jana, I have a question, and you may not have the answer. I will follow up on email too, but I know there was some comments last year from some parents who had this situation where there were I think it was volleyball, multiple teams, and so some of the teams only played half as many games as they had expected. Would that be solved by this, or does that still happen with this plan, where they have to split the number of games they play?
Will be for some of the sports that have larger numbers. There's a difference in 7th and 8th grade, and it's highlighted in there in that 7th grade is still splitting fairly evenly.
Okay.
And then in 8th grade, it would be more, there would be one traditional A team, and then we would split the rest of the group
Yeah,
by
so
ability.
I guess the question is, like, when you have multiple B teams, do they alternate which games they play, or do they get the same number of games, or?
It'll be dependent on the amount, of games. There's I guess, an opinion on, do you play one game and then have the other team play another game, or is it like you go to one competition and then maybe don't go to the next competition? And we're just trying to figure out what's the best
Okay,
for.
that's kind of what I was wondering,
Yep.
was that part. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, again, this is on for first reading. And then Jana, we'll stick with you for the student handbook.
We have a lot of the same changes as elementary, so Lish did a great job of explaining the changes to the elementary handbook, so I'm going to breeze through some of those same changes and then highlight some of the ones that are a little bit different. Updated the academic with the non-discrimination, same with the access to the building per the safety policy, same with the attendance, added the office email to report attendance. Cell phones or personal communication devices, we added a little bit more information on this to include smartwatches, because the students at the middle school are communicating via their smartwatches, so wanting those to have the same sort of policy. They can wear the smartwatch, but if they're using it for communication, we follow our cell phone, it follows the same procedure as our cell phone procedure if students are misusing their watches for communication. Classroom placement procedure, we updated on how a parent or guardian may request a specific teacher, updated some guidance on that. We updated, for the daily schedule, updated the wording on early drop-off. We, in the drug prevention section, added the misuse of over-the-counter drugs or medications. Something in addition to updating from 18 to 21 for the tobacco update, we also included the specific forms of tobacco. We felt like that was a little more applicable to middle school students than including that in the elementary handbook. So you'll see a big, long section on different tobacco products. Staying consistent with the emergency drills. Something that you'll see in both the middle school and the high school is on Chromebook insurance. We updated the policy on Chromebook insurance to align with our new district technology handbook. Inclement weather was the same. We updated, since we're changing our schedule this year, we updated information in the LMC section on the ability for students to use the LMC a little bit more. Traditionally, students had gone during one of their ELA classes, and we updated just more of an ability to access the LMC. Removed information from our lost and found, added the non-discrimination section in the meals section. We actually added a whole meals section. We didn't have a section on that before, and so we added, pretty similarly to the elementary school, added that, but included in the middle school, NutriBreak instead of snack break, and information on a la carte. Updated the searches of school property, updated the sincerely held religious beliefs section. We updated for visitors to our school, advance notice requested to the principal before a visitor would come to our school, so that we can have time to not prepare for the visitor, but we have time for just advance notice for a visitor to come to our school. And remove the written application to volunteer, as that's no longer a part of the process. I know I whipped through those, but Lish did a lot of explaining.
All good. Team, does it have any specific questions for Jana on the handbook?
I just add that those changes are very much substantive versus cosmetic. And so underneath that, of course, is a lot of staff work and a lot of passion. So I appreciate all that. And then going back just to one, very early on, it says the school comes first over athletics. And that's just such a powerful thing to say, especially upstream for students that will eventually get into the high school. It's easy to say that, but the very first thing is school comes first. And you can look in the handbook and see how prevalent that is. So that's fantastic. And then for volleyball, it just shows, I think, what a learning environment the middle school is. Like I had a kiddo in volleyball as well. It sorted itself out, but what you guys did is went right at that with the methodology, and however that ultimately plays out, I know that underneath that is a structured system, well thought out, that will lead to good outcomes. So I just personally, as a dad and professionally as a school board member, also appreciate diving headlong into that complication and then really putting out clean math that explains why and how it engenders trust, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, co-curricular staff handbook.
Jason's out of town, so I have both the co-curricular and activities. Both of these had major rewrites last year that were approved. So this year, you'll notice the co-curricular staff handbook. There are no changes other than the date change. And then the only significant change that Jason made is on page 4 of the activities handbook in looking at moving some different groups into different levels based on if they're doing overnight trips or not overnight trips in terms of where they fall from a co-curricular code standpoint.
Any immediate questions for Jared? All right. I guess we'll move on to our action items, and we'll start then with item 12, which is the Honor-Pals program and evaluation potential approval of a recommendation for a general contractor. We'll start with Janet.
So we put this on as an action item in the event that the board is prepared to take action this evening. However, we want you to feel comfortable. If you are not comfortable moving forward with action, that's certainly okay. We just wanted to give you that option. And then in addition to that, we wanted to do our best to front load with as much information and as much history as we could to help you understand why were the bids off significantly from what we had projected. And if you remember, with this project, we started with the potential Honor-Pals program as part of our strategic budget plan way back when. Then we also had it when you approved the capital asset project for this year. We had a placeholder in there for $100,000 to get ready for the physical implementation of this program. So in the attachments to this, there are 2 attachments. One is kind of background and history on how did we get to where we are. And then in addition, Vantage submitted a kind of chronological history of trying to outline, like, okay, we started with 100,000, that's not where we ended up. Why? And if I was a board member, I'd want to know why. How come we're off, and how come we're off that much? So trying to explain to you, like, what was the rationale. And in a nutshell, we did that estimate after a visit to one program in one school. Then once our staff came together and started designing the space, and there were the elementary principals as well as Lori, and then also our teacher who we hired later in the process had input on that design too. So it's really been through a great process with the people that would be using that space, as well as their work in looking at other programs besides just the one that was toured early on, to make sure that we were taking a long view on what's the best way to design this space moving forward to have the best result for the students utilizing the program, as well as the other students in the school building, in this case, Eagle Bluff, where this program will be located. So I won't go after any more than that. I know that you've read the documentation. We have Jerry and Jessica here from Vantage to answer any additional questions that you might have. And with that, I guess I'll turn it back to the board for any questions that we can answer.
Can you refresh my memory on the number of students we're serving in this space or plan to serve?
Okay, yeah.
So to start with, like Janet mentioned, we hired a teacher and we are in the process of hiring 2 support staff. We hope to we will start the program, even if it's not in this specific location, because we're kind of having to come up with a plan B in the interim, knowing that this may not be available by the beginning of the school year. 3 students. Hopefully before the end of the school year, there's 5 that are kind of earmarked for the program.
5 additional or 5 total?
5 total.
Okay.
5 total.
And is that roughly the number that you expect to see year over year?
Yeah, it's hard to predict.
Right.
But when you look at historically our data of how many students we have had to seek out-of-district placements for at the elementary level, that's been about our number. Ebbs and flows a little bit, but that's been about the number of students. We are looking at this as our most restrictive, last kind of resort placement for students with disabilities before we would look at something out of the district, which we have never had before. So not an easy decision, and it would not be obviously our first go-to, and it would be something that after many, many other interventions and services and the resources we have in the buildings, then we would maybe consider this. So I don't anticipate it's going to be a large number of students, and it shouldn't be, but a high ratio of support staff, or of teacher and support staff to students in order for it to be successful.
Thank you.
Sure.
I just have another question, and I know you had said, and it says in the documentation you provided, that it's going to serve elementary students with individualized education plans, or IEPs, who are not succeeding in our school environment. That can be a wide range, grade-wise and age-wise and level-wise. Do you feel like whatever you're proposing as the design will accommodate everybody?
At the for the elementary level, yes, I do. At least to start with, and this I think is a benefit, the students that we are looking at happen to be at a second and third grade level, which gives us a great place to start from and then grow from. So yes, we know there's a lot of decisions we need to make going forward, but we're building this with the forethought of it being a district-wide elementary program. So K through 5, potentially, yes.
Sure.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Jason?
I was just
So
kind of
Laura-
curious with the given space as this initial design to get things going or whatever, if you feel like there's going to be sufficient space, if you do get that variation in age group.
So
Yeah.
Switching to smaller toilets and all that jazz.
No, the other way around.
Oh, the other way around?
Yeah.
Oh, a little bit bigger
Yep,
toilets.
Yep, it was an early childhood special education
Okay,
classroom at one
okay.
point, which, yeah.
Yeah, so really
So-
tiny.
Yeah. it's going
Lori,
to a bigger
in your
one.
opinion, what's the maximum number of students this space could accommodate?
The space, 8.
Okay,
That's my off the cuff. I mean, I'm thinking of, like, if I envisioned staff and students in that space, I would think, and I would invite other opinions too, because this has been a team effort. 8 or 9, max?
so
would
if
say.
we were to not do this and have someone else do these services, what would that cost the district?
Yeah, Janet looked into last week, we looked at the cost over the last 3 years. Now, we'd have to separate it out because not all the students that are in out-of-district placements are at the elementary level. But what was it, like, on average, over $200,000 a
around-
year that we're already spending for those placement costs? And the range of cost per day was it's around $220 all the way up to $460 per day.
No, I'm not suggesting we do that because you lose
Yep.
control. I mean,
That too.
someone else is happening.
Yep.
Jerry, I had a couple questions for you. So it looks like the big misses on this were HVAC and electrical. Could
That
you,
is right. When we started out with the initial design, we didn't have calming rooms, places like that in there. And so that's really was a big change. So we started having 2 independent rooms added to it. Well, unfortunately, they were next to the office and next to the toilet room. We needed fresh air, we needed return air. We had to change the office, the toilet room, get fresh air and stuff to these 2 calming rooms. And as we were doing that, the engineer said, gee, shouldn't we be putting some fresh air in the cubicles too? It's gonna be great for the kids. So that was a big one. That was, the HVAC was 14,000. Electrical, we started out simple. Then we added a Verkada intercom system to that exterior door. Then we said, geez, it should be nice to control the lights for these special kids. They're gonna, control dimmers, that type of thing. Then we started building the cubicles, and we said, boy, we better get the power and the thing out of the walls, because these kids will go in and they'll dig the power out of the walls, so the electrical got much bigger. And some of it was just general construction. Because we added rooms, we added ceilings, we added floorings, we added bases, painting, and then lastly was the site work. Then the city got involved and said, well, can you put in some planting islands? And I just ran some quick numbers, but it was like 16 for general construction, 14 for HVAC, about 30 for the electrical, with all the lighting, 25 for the site work, and you put on the 20% overhead and profit, there's 123,000. That's what we missed it by. It was almost double, but it was things that weren't in the beginning, And if you'd say, well, can we take something out? Maybe we could take out some of the lighting and stuff, but that would be just prolonging it. You'd want to have it in there someday. You don't say, well, let's save 20,000 today and spend it next year. That type of thing is probably not prudent either.
No.
HVAC, we want to do, the city has to do the site work, the general construction. So unfortunately, to take anything out right now would probably be a mistake, or you just have to put it back in later, so.
Not suggesting that, just want to
Yeah,
understand.
yep, but, so.
What it want to do it. This is a specialty area, so it's going to be
Oh,
more.
yeah, and, yes, exactly.
That's all the questions I had.
Just some additional commentary that I'd like to share too regarding the city component. Certainly, Fran, prior to me, had some conversations. I'm sure you've been briefed upon that, and I've had some additional conversations, and just as recently as today with the mayor and the city administrator regarding this. There is a process that we potentially could go through. There's no guarantees, but it would be about two months or so to make an appeal on what they're asking us to change for the code, which is the parking lot islands, if you will. And if I'm mistaken, I hope I'm not, is it about $25,000 additional dollars for that? Originally, when we were having discussions, we thought it was that number was higher. But we did find that was $25,000. So that is something that is potentially, could be worked on. The unfortunate piece with doing so is it would prolong our ability to move forward with this project. And two, there's no guarantees that we would be approved for that. And, I think the other, well, that's probably the two reasons. And you guys can, ask us to consider, doing that work, or if the board wants to pass it tonight, you certainly can.
I'll make a motion to approve the bid of $223,346 by Fowler and Hammer.
I'll second that.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Tracy to approve the recommendation of Fowler and Hammer for the Anna Pals remodeling project at Eagle Bluff Elementary with a bid of $223,346. Are there any further questions or comments?
I just want to clarify something that Lori had mentioned. You had said around $200,000 for out-of-district placements currently. Is that per year? And is that just the elementary?
No.
So so how many is that serving? Do you know roughly?
Right now, there were 4 this past year.
Okay,
So every
so
year
even
it's a
if even if it was 4 elementary students, it would still be roughly $200,000 a year. And I'm asking because I was not fully supportive of this bid, but if we're already spending the money, that changes the situation.
One of the other things that we ran into this year, which probably forced us to really consider an internal option. Sorry. More than any other year, is that our options outside of the district were at capacity. So then what?
Yeah.
And so I know other area school districts run into the same, because we feed into the same alternative options. And when they're full, they're still our student and we're still responsible for their education, and we don't have another plan. So, yeah.
I just want to add one clarification to that. So when we're talking about that, we need to remember that this cost is just for the physical plant. We will still have personnel costs with both the staffing of the teacher as well as some paraprofessionals as a part of that. So this cost, I think the best way to be thinking about it is amortizing it over time in the amount of money that we're not paying out to these other exterior organizations. But it's not a one-for-one because we will also have additional costs in our budget.
I think it's a really important question that Bridget asked. And, I think also through the dialogue, there's a clear, like, over time return on this investment to the district, to the community, right? But it's also an opportunity to serve our students right here in our own district where we're not doing that today.
I do have one final question. Based on enrollment and everything else, I know you said the space could potentially house up to 8 or 9 students, but again, staffing would probably have to be changed, et cetera, to accommodate additional students. With the staffing that you anticipate now, and I know that this is like starting from scratch, right? Like, but do you foresee if we did have space that we would potentially, take students if we have the space from other districts? I know it's big picture. You might not have the answer, but that's where my brain's going.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are programs where districts share programs and space, especially when there's such a small number of students that are being served.
Sure.
We hadn't thought about that yet and making a plan for that, but I know, I shouldn't say that. I've thought about that.
Right.
It would be an interesting endeavor.
And I recognize we have to get started and see how it goes to start anyways, but that's just big picture.
No?
So just one last question.
Sure.
Do we serve our students better by doing this or not doing this?
By doing this.
That's an easy answer.
That's an easy answer.
All right.
Yeah.
By doing
That's it.
this.
Brian.
On a continuum of least restrictive,
Yes,
this falls,
the most.
right, compared to the off-site, is it the same, or? I mean, we've heard mention, we have more control, more, we're handling safety, all of those things that we know that all the components of that are then following our mission, our vision.
Yes.
In my mind, that, keeping them here with us, serving our own, the way that we want to serve our students would seem to be less restrictive than sending them someplace else.
Yes, and it depends on the alternative site too. I would say some, like one site in particular, runs more like, because they have such a large population of students that they serve, it's run more like with classrooms and larger groups, even than what we're looking at. But then another one of the sites, it's pretty isolated. That student has a staff person with them all the time, which then I would say is even more restrictive. Being off-site makes it also more restrictive than in our district. So there's different factors to consider. I think one of the biggest benefits, and maybe we won't see it this next year, but hopefully, is reintegrating students back into our buildings and our regular classrooms from an internal program will be so much easier than when we transfer students from other agencies into. And for students that do transfer to us, they have a place to go that isn't just right back into a regular classroom to transition back from an alternative site. So it gives us that in-between that we've been missing.
The discussion has pivoted a bit, perhaps, in evaluating on benefit, which is clear, as you mentioned, easy answer. But I think the way the district presented it at the beginning, which is this is over 2 times as high as we thought, no need to hurry, like we don't have to action it tonight, just look at this. To me, I was hearing clearly a program with great value, and everyone understands, but the bid is over 2 times what we thought it would be. That's where the district has given us time, I think in several different documents and words of, it's okay, let's just think about this if you would like to approve tonight. it's a roll of the dice to a degree to say, hey, here's the one course of action. The bid is going to be, 3K versus, Jerry, you mentioned that it's a mistake to take something out, save $20,000 today and do it later. I think that's a board thought, perhaps. So maybe there's one bid that is what it was, and then that's a good conversation of by doing this, we lose. And then here's the next, and by doing this, we lose, and here's what takes us to 223. Then the board gets to see perhaps 3 different things and make a choice versus what ends up being an all or nothing. And I might not be entirely comfortable with at 223, whereas all the logic is sound and the program is obviously good. To me, that's a separate conversation altogether. So I regret perhaps that we're speeding towards approving something without maybe having just frankly taking up the offer we've been given a few different times of let's look at this for a second. And then the vote is one rooted in, okay, we've seen options of math, clearly great program, high five. It just feels like decision space has shrunk a little bit on the space that we've been given in terms of let's look at math. So that's what I know the motion approval is on the floor. I think perhaps it's misdirected in that it's becoming a statement on the value of the program rather than a good look at a bid that was really high, and we were given opportunities to pause and look at that.
My question kind of piggybacks on Eric's statement, and that is for our friends at Vantage. So the 223, 346, is that a final number? Is there a percentage that you typically have built into your contracts that you can exceed? I mean, how certain is this number?
I guess I would suggest that we talk to Fowler and Hammer and just see once, can we pull out the lighting? Can we pull out certain things?
I'm not worried about pulling out. I'm just saying if this were approved as it is tonight,
Yeah,
is that the number?
that is
Or-
the number. I mean, that was a competitive bid.
Okay, so there's not gonna be, oh, hey, the HVAC ended up being an extra $10,000-$20,000?
No,
Okay,
no.
that's what I was.
This is a
wondering.
contract amount,
Thank you.
yeah.
So you're asking if there would be any future changes to the project?
If we
or
had issued
future,
a
like,
change order,
cost
that makes
changes?
sense. I'm
Okay.
just wanting to make sure that this is the
Okay.
number. Okay.
I guess I would like to emphasize a lot of the things that were said from Aaron and others, and I've had multiple conversations with Janet about this, and, our philosophy and our feeling that we want to serve our students. And another point is this space is available. It's underutilized at this point. So, that's another factor. We can make good use of that.
Can we do a roll call, please?
Request for a roll call vote.
Anne,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and Aaron.
I'm a yes. Motion passes. Team, thank you for your work on that.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move into item 13, which is our 2025-26 school nutrition update and pricing, and welcome Carrie Johnson.
Thank you for having me.
Your microphone, Carrie. Microphone?
Am I good? Yep. Green is good? All right. So, our year in review, starting with some points of pride for school nutrition. We expanded our elementary offerings to 3 options daily for kids to choose, and definitely increased our participation and I think the overall approval of our program. Our students loved it, parents loved it, I think staff also. Our staff especially noticed the big change in food waste. They had a choice, so it was something that they bought into it. Most definitely, we had a lot more students actually eating what was on their tray rather than taking components to make it a reimbursable meal. Another change that came about when Lish initiated contact with me via email with a student who was adamant that the chicken and waffles that was offered at the high school should be an item that was on the elementary menu also. I did not realize she was a Schaffner, but she had a good argument, let me just say that. So I found a waffle that was compliant for that age group and fit the profile for our menu items, and it is now the best received menu across the district. Elementary, middle school, and high school, chicken and waffles, it's a hit.
Supplanting orange chicken.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Orange chicken is yesterday's news. Chicken and waffles is a big deal. Also, Janet is an amazing leader, I have to add, and she, in her effort to get to know the school nutrition staff a little bit better, wanted to initiate this project, which is getting to know the school nutrition team. Just pass these around quickly, share. And at first, I thought that our team would be a little leery of offering personal information, but what really came out of it is their own frustration about being part of a team where they don't see each other. So just by getting this electronic document together, Janet interviewed everyone, they offered in pictures of themselves and something about their families, and I have never seen them feel so important. It was just really amazing, the effect it had on my team. And I appreciate it, Janet, so thank you for initiating the project, and I hope that it did help you get to know everyone better, because it was a pretty awesome thing. So we're intending to work for permission from staff to share it with the buildings. We don't want them to feel like we wanted your personal information for some other reason right away. But it just turned out so cool, we'd like to share it. So building-wide, district-wide in the buildings, we're going to try and be able to share that with the rest of the staff in the buildings. I know Ben at middle school does a nice staff spotlight with his newsletter, and it's something that we all look forward to. Muffin Mania Day was a big deal at the middle school in May. The DPI chef put out 3 farm-to-school local muffin recipes for districts to try, and we just kind of grabbed the whole thing and ran with it. We did all 3 of the muffin recipes and then had the middle school students sample them at their nutrition break, and then they were able to vote on which item made the menu going forward. They were well received, all of them, and we are planning to menu all of them going forward, not just the one that won the voting, but strawberry rhubarb. It was a hit. Strawberry rhubarb, blueberry, and what am I missing? Oh, apple carrot. They were all very good. So the chef came, complimented our staff, did what a wonderful job they did in the baking department, and just really impressed with our students and their participation as well. This next slide shows these 8th grade boys were so into the muffin sampling process. They handed out samples, they were in charge of voting stations. They did a really nice job. Ongoing things, we're now using Rebel Greens hydroponics out of Minnesota for a local offering for all of our greens and lettuce on our salad bars district-wide. We are continuing with our Tom's Grocery Bag Backpack program to send groceries home with families for the weekend, things that are kid-friendly. And added to those backpacks, we've also started to do some personal items, which is well-received as well. We're grateful that the new school food pantry distribution center is at OMS and by our central kitchen. It's a really nice facility and a nice area for families to come that's modernized and easy for them to get to, and it also is helpful for the food pantry staff. We have some availability to store some frozen items for them that they didn't have access to before, so sharing the location with them is, I think, going to be a really good partnership. We have amazing staff who are dedicated to our students, their families, and each other. Our Cooley Region Farm to School program will continue. We offer a monthly menu item called our Harvest of the Month, and then our students do a sample of that menu item once before it's on. That's well received as well because the students are actually physically handing out the samples, and I think they really like participating with their peers. And last but not least, the community-wide support to assist with our negative meal account balances. It's amazing. I'm always impressed year after year that somebody comes forward, and this year we've been very fortunate. The Beer by Biker Brigade made a nice donation. Marine Credit Union had an employee that was retiring, and her request was that it go to school nutrition. And then Service Master, we just heard about that one recently. So very appreciative of our community and those folks that choose to send their money our way to help families. It's nice for them and really nice for me to have something else to offer on the other end of that phone call rather than you owe money, we could help. So
Looking forward to 25-26, completing the referendum project at middle school for sure will elevate our dining experience for the middle school kids, allow us to showcase menu offerings, and increase our participation there as well. We'd like to expand the favorite meals week we do at the high school. We kind of interview the seniors ahead of time casually and find out what their favorite menu items are. We really know just by participation, but it's nice to include them in the process. And then we do 1 week of senior favorite meals, and seniors love it, and I think that at the elementary level, the 5th graders would love it if they got to choose, and at the middle school level, the 8th graders would. So we're going to look forward to doing that next school year, or this coming. We're implementing a professional learning community for our school nutrition site supervisors so they can do a better job of doing some lunch and learn lessons with kids and focus on what we can do to do a better job for them or what their, needs and wants are. And implementing a long-range capital equipment replacement plan, which is something we've got a lot of aging equipment in the district that we need to think about how we're going to replace them before it's an emergency that we do.
So I'll take these next couple slides on budget. The first one that you'll see is basically looking at our revenues and expenditures by source and by object. And if you remember on expenditures, we always look at them kind of 2 different ways, the what and the what for. With school nutrition, it's kind of all the same what for. So we're looking at this by object. You'll see that in our proposed budget, we'll be revising this as we close out this year, just like all the other budgets when we adopt our original budget in the last meeting in October. But at this point in time, this is our best estimate on what we're proposing for the next year. And this year we proposed a deficit budget to, on purpose, to use up some of our fund balance next year. If we do that, then we're proposing that we present a balanced budget for the 25-26 school year. Then looking at the next slide, it's sometimes easy to see how our revenues and expenditures by looking at these in a pie chart on how, where does our money come from? And you can see that a lot of it is local, 47.3%, but the drama that we're having at the federal level makes this 51.3 kind of catch our attention on the hope that we continue to have those funds moving forward because they really support our school nutrition budget. And the way that school nutrition budgets are set up in Wisconsin is that it needs to be a self-sufficient fund. So revenues and expenditures have to match. If they do not, and we go into a deficit overall, that must be supplemented from the general fund. So you can have negative budget years until you overspend all of that. Thankfully, we're not in that place. There are a number of school districts that have to do a transfer from the general fund every single year. We're not in that spot, and it's due to good leadership that we've had with our programming here, and we want to stay that way. Because if we get to the point where we need to make those transfers, that's money that's not going for classroom kinds of programming. It's stuff that's coming out of the general budget to cover the deficit in school nutrition. But when we look at, so you can see it's primarily local and federal. When we look at expenses, when you look at the budget for the rest of our budget, the staffing takes up like usually 75 to 80% of the budget. And if we could advance to the next slide, looking at school nutrition, that's not the case with wages and employee benefits, 44.5%. And you see that big chunk of food. That's the one that gets really expensive for our school nutrition program. And then as Carrie talked about earlier, we need to be working on replacing that capital equipment because if we don't keep up, we're going to need to catch up. And as you asked in our treasurer meeting today, you know, it seems like we're spending a lot of money fixing our school nutrition equipment. So it's just keeping that stuff, you know, running so that we don't have to have those expenditures moving forward. And then if we can go on to the next slide, Carrie will talk about our pricing history and our proposal.
Sure. Historically, when we have raised prices, we've raised them by 10 cents. We have not raised prices since 2022, 23. So I think it's time. It's been 3 years without an increase, and I would propose that we increase our pricing across the board by 10 cents. Breakfast, lunch, and then the milk carton, single carton of milk increased by a nickel.
And when Carrie says that we're proposing this increase, when we look at the budget information, we feel we need to do that in order to, because this year we anticipate going into fund balance a little bit. That's okay for a year, but we don't want that on an ongoing basis. So we need this price increase. And the other thing that we don't want to have is large spikes and changes. So if we need to change it just a little, and we all know going to the grocery store, grocery prices are not getting cheaper.
The next slide just talks about our program statistics and our free and reduced percentages. Gives you a comparison over the last 3 years, and then building to building, and then the district totals across the bottom. I'm hoping that those numbers remain pretty steady and that people aren't impacted by the changes in benefits that automatically qualify people for, I guess I should push my thing, sorry, that automatically qualify people for free and reduced price meals. I think some of our folks are going to have to go to a paper application if those benefits that automatically qualify have been rescinded. So we're going to do everything we can to encourage people to fill out those applications. We already have them available at every building on our websites. Our staff district-wide are very versed in handing people an application, offering to help with filling it out, or just sending them our way to get that done. So I'm pretty confident that we'll reach the people we need to, but it might be a different way for some folks to qualify for the benefit. I would just like to thank our school nutrition staff. They work very hard to deliver outstanding customer service. We strive to provide quality nutrition food products, nutritious food products, so that our learners have the necessary brain fuel for optimal success. If you haven't dined with us or visited, please give it a try. The pictures on this slide are actually pictures of the dance team who came and visited at lunch at Irving Perch Elementary, and then the police officers actually came and served lunch one day, and the kids love it. They'd love to see your faces, anybody. They're very curious about who's coming to see them. So welcome. You're welcome to come and join us anytime.
So with that, the last slide that we'd ask the board, you can see the proposed recommendation for 25-26, and we would ask that the board make a motion on accepting that or modifying it.
I just have a general question, Carrie, and if you don't know the answer, that's totally okay too.
Sure.
As someone who doesn't have a child in the elementary, middle school where they have lots of choices,
Yes.
how do you go about knowing what they're going to want? You know what I mean? Like in the morning, do they pick what they're going to want? I mean, I think it's great
At the elementary, they do. At the elementary, they choose choice 1, 2, or 3. Choice 3 is always a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, the Uncrustables, which they love. And then the entree 1 or entree 2. And during attendance in the morning at elementary, they make their choice. Choice 1, choice 2, choice 3. The buildings have gotten pictures so that when they do the announcement, they show what the lunch is, not just the name of it, but physically what it looks like. And we've done a really good job of predicting at the elementary what's what. Now, for Jackie at the middle school and Angel at the high school, it's a crapshoot. You do the best you can, and you know by the first service, when you have 3, that the moon is sitting strange if they're all taking the item you didn't expect, and then you make that transition. It's hard work, and they do a very good job of knowing what's what and adjusting on the fly if it's not going the way they think it should.
I just think that's awesome that, like you said, there's less waste. Kids are actually eating their food, which helps brain power, during the day. So, getting that choice and then knowing ahead of time sounds like it's a real benefit in the elementary schools.
For
As far
sure.
as waste, reducing the amount of food waste as well, like what you
Definitely.
prepare.
Our
So that's
staff-
awesome.
I was concerned that our staff would think of it as, oh, more work, what am I going to do? And that I would be problem-solving those things. Not once. They were thrilled. They just took it on, and it's been really successful. Yeah,
That's awesome. Thank you, Carrie.
thank you.
So I have a question for you. And I think I know the answer, but I want to hear you say it.
Sure.
So everyone has an account.
Yes.
Let's say the child doesn't have money in that account.
Yes.
Does anyone ever go hungry?
Never. No one ever goes hungry. We never remind a student in line or anywhere else that they owe lunch money or they're getting low. It's all taken care of electronically with parents. They get a bright arrow message if they're negative or late. I make phone calls. If it gets really bad, we have policies in place where I work with the principals, and the principals help me work with the families. And never, ever, ever do we ever take a tray away, embarrass a student, or even let them know that they don't have money. They don't know. And the systems, point-of-sale systems, don't allow for anyone to see the screen or know if someone's free or reduced or any of that. It's called overt identification, and we don't do it.
Perfect. I thought that was the answer, but I didn't want to hear you say it. Thanks.
That's great. And Carrie, also, it's nice to see some of the things just district-wide kind of flowing through you as well, like the professional learning community that you mentioned with your staff. That's
Yes.
great.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be a part of it as well. That's been a big turnaround in school nutrition culture as well. We feel like we're really part of the district.
Oh, great.
That was going to be a little bit of the comment I was going to make is I was telling Ann last week, I look forward to this presentation every year because, mainly because it's another example to see a group that, to the students is very visible, right? But you live the mission of the district and support that every day. And you think creatively about it, and it's really just impressive to see the energy that you bring to it, Carrie, right?
Thank
But
you.
I know there's a whole team behind you that's doing the same thing.
A very good one.
And so,
Yeah.
thank you for everything that you and your staff do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Then I-
Appreciate your support.
Then I hope
Make a
Nick-
motion that we accept the 2025-26 school nutrition meal and milk price recommendations for board approval as outlined in enclosure 13, school nutrition, and presented by Janet and Carrie.
Second.
Motion by Bridget, seconded by Brian, to approve the nutrition meal and milk price recommendations as detailed in enclosure 13 and presented by Carrie and Janet this evening. Are there any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you.
See you on Chicken and Waffle Day. Bump up those numbers.
Are they served with ketchup or syrup?
Maple syrup, and there's always ketchup.
There was one down that way.
Thank you for sharing those
Yes, absolutely.
pictures with us too. I mean,
That's cool.
Oh, I promise.
Top secret. Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
And we'll move on to action item number 14, which is a second reading for the 2025-26 induction handbook. And I'll pass it to you, Ben.
We're asking the board to approve this. There are no changes to this handbook.
I would move that we approve the 25-26 initial educator induction handbook as outlined in enclosure 14.
Second.
Motion by Ann, seconded by Tracy to approve the 2025-26 initial educator induction handbook as outlined in enclosure 14. Does anyone have any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that is approved. Thank you all for your work on that. We'll move now into personnel report. Are there requests for any items to be removed from the personnel report for separate consideration? Hearing none, pass it over to you, Sonia.
Thank you. We are rounding out our teaching staff here with Kaylee Cole being our fourth grade teacher at Eagle Bluff. And then we have a few hourly staff positions. Bo Chambers will be our last custodian at the high school to finish that hiring process for them. And then we start with our paraprofessionals of Jared, Cooper, and Emily starting out for this 25-26 school year. We are excited to have Lish join at the district office as our new Director of Instructional Services. We also have one para, Zoe DeBoer, that it will be transferring from Northern Hills to the high school through the On-Ability program. We have the summer school contracts for our kindergarten camp here in August, and then co-curricular changes at the high school, and then a couple resignation notifications.
So Sonia, I think I ask this question every year. We're looking good? We have everybody we need?
We are looking good. We have one special education teacher at the middle school, a new position that the board recently approved, so that is not filled yet. And then we have a number of paraprofessional positions still open that you'll see on the next couple personnel reports as we start the school year.
Thank you.
I would then move that we approve the personnel report as presented in agenda item 15, the enclosure as presented by Sonia.
Second.
Motion by Ann, seconded by Brian, to approve the personnel report as presented by Sonia and detailed in enclosure 15 personnel report and 15 summer school. Are there any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Are there any requests to remove items from the consent agenda for separate consideration?
Seeing none, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Mark, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. The Board of Education will entertain a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parens 1F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories of disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where parent B applies, which, if discussed in public, would likely to have substantial adverse effect on the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations. For the purpose of considering the evaluative data collected by former interim superintendents, the board will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting at the conclusion of the closed session.
I would make that motion.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Ann, to convene in closed session as detailed and read by myself. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yep, Eric,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
and Aaron.
Yes. We will convene in closed session in this room in 5 minutes.
In here? Okay.
I think.